I'm pleased to be joined by our Vice President of Engineering, Bob Pease. Thank you for being here, Bob.
My pleasure.
I've been looking forward to this interview for a while now because
Awesome.
I'm very excited. We get to talk about continuity replay, which is what makes Wilmac Wilmac. It is our proprietary software. But before we dive into that a little bit, why don't you go ahead and tell our viewers a little bit about your experience, how you became the VP of Engineering at Wilmac?
Sure. I've been a software developer for about 16 years now. Out of college, my first job was at a small startup located right here in Rochester, New York. I worked there for a few years, went through an acquisition. And then in 2011, a bunch of the same core group of that companies did another startup called CloudCheckr, and I worked there for 10 years. And that's where most of my experience that's relevant to Wilmac came from. We built an enterprise SaaS product in the cloud. So I got a lot of hands-on experience developing solutions in the cloud. Went through some re-architecture projects there as well to kind of rewrite our software to leverage more of the benefits of the cloud and reduce our spend within the cloud. After that, I did one more startup on my own, and that one did not go so well. I did that for about a year, and we ended up closing up shop. It just wasn't a good market fit. And then someone reached out to me about the opportunity here at Wilmac. I fell in love with the company through the interview process and joined back in November.
That's awesome, Bob. And same, when I was interviewing with Wilmac, I immediately knew this was the company I wanted to be at. So we definitely will get into continuity replay. So basically, what you've done, what your role was to basically build continuity from the ground up again to get it into the cloud. So could you give a little bit of an overview of continuity replay in layman terms so everyone can understand?
Yeah, absolutely. So continuity replay is it's a search and replay solution for your archive communication data. Historically, it was focused on recorded calls from your contact centers. We're kind of turning that though, and we're integrating with things like web chat, text message chat, and email as well.
What are your top 3 new or updated features of continuity replay that you're proud of, and what are they solving or improving on?
Sure. This is a hard one to answer because there's just so many cool things about continuity replay as we're rewriting it. Instead of talking about a specific feature, I want to talk first about a concept that's really important to me in the way that we're developing the software. It also ties into some future roadmap items. As we've been rewriting it, we're taking an API-first approach. And what that means is we develop the API for the application before we develop anything else. And an API stands for Application Programming Interface. And it's a common way that you integrate systems in the software world. So we write our API in the back end of it, and then we write a UI that consumes the API. The reason that's so important is that it lends itself well to integrating with other systems down the road.
Very important.
So we're able to build out integrations with other partners, vendors, and so forth. So that's the first one. That's my first favorite feature. My next feature that I'll pick is user management. We are implementing what's called RBAC, role-based access controls. What that's going to allow our users to do is define a role and pick what permissions map to that role, and then map that role to one or more users within the system. Okay. The reason this is beneficial is oftentimes you will have different roles within your organization that require different levels of access. And typically, we only want to give our employees access to the data that they need, rather than saying, here's this whole system, go find it. Yeah. Right? We're going to limit that scope. Yeah, we're going to limit that scope. It's very important because so many of the clients that we are serving are in highly regulated industries, right? So they have these compliance rules that kind of dictate this approach to their software in the first place. So we're implementing that to kind of beef up our security posture. Very cool product. My third favorite feature, it's also not a specific feature, but kind of more of a category. We're introducing OpenSearch, which is a database technology that enables full text search. What this is going to do is vastly improve the search capabilities that we offer within the product, and really open up the world of possibilities for how we might help our users access the data that we're looking for in the future.
Very, very cool. And yeah, definitely you touched on it where our customers are usually in highly regulated industries such as financial trading floors, public safety, healthcare. And there's a lot of hesitation moving forward in these industries, especially with AI. What are your plans with AI and continuity replay, especially when it comes to dealing with our customer base in a little hesitant market?
Yeah, absolutely. I spend so much time thinking about this, and in part because AI is such a big buzzword right
Mhm.
now, right? Everyone's talking about it. And for me, it kind of, I think about it in two different ways. One is kind of the low level implementation of AI. And if you pause for a minute and just think about what tools you use today on a daily basis that have AI and what they do for you, right? AI can be applied in a pretty basic way to help automate things for you, right? So I use Grammarly, for example, to help me adjust my tone as I'm writing documentation or as I'm writing an email, and that's a great tool.
Mhm.
I also use some other products that will help generate graphics for you, right? So I just type in my
Very cool.
prompt, and like if I'm going to post something on LinkedIn, for example, it can create an image that's going to match the story that I want to tell. So
That's
there's
very cool.
really, I think I consider them basic applications of
Mhm.
AI, right? And when I think about what that could mean for continuity replay, if you have an action that you're going to do in an application and it's going to take you 5 steps to get there, AI can help automate those processes for
Mhm.
you, and it will just ease the workflow for you, right? So that's the basic implementation. Some of the bigger things that we're talking about doing are really to help add value and to the data and really enrich the data that we have. So one of the things that comes to mind is call summarization.
Mm.
If you are going through and auditing a series of calls, you have to sit and listen to them, and they could all be 20, 40, 60 minutes long. That's a lot of time spent, right? With AI, we could go through those transcriptions and generate a summarization for you that will let you know if you even have to spend time on that call in the first place.
Very cool. That is very cool. Yeah. Efficiency, that's definitely
Yes.
what the role we believe AI is going to
Yeah.
play. One of the cool things that makes Wilmac is when our customers come to us with a problem, we figure it out. Throughout all of our history, every product that we have sold has come because a customer has asked for it and needed it, and we figured out how to bring it to them. You're building that into continuity replay.
Yeah.
When you presented it to the sales team a couple of weeks ago, you talked about feature requests, which
Yep.
hit me. Loved it. Could you explain what that is and what it
Yeah.
means for our customers that we're going to have that?
Yeah, so a feature request is effectively a request for change to your software. It can come from anywhere, internal to your organization. Whether the dev team could have a feature request. The sales team might have a feature request that's based on a series of conversations that they're having with their customers. Or a customer that's using the product today might have an idea for a change, and they'll put in a feature request to us. So those are kind of the three ways they can get to us. When we receive a feature request, we prioritize it, which means we look at that feature request and think about, is it going to apply to the greater public, right? Is it something that we want to implement? Is it something that 10 customers want, or is it just something that one
Mm-hmm.
customer wants? Those sorts of things impact how we prioritize it. And what we're prioritizing it against is the rest of the backlog that the development team has to do. Feature requests get very high priority for us. To your point, we're very customer driven. We want that feedback. We want to know what would make the product better. So oftentimes a feature request that will come from a customer will prompt a conversation to get more information, right? And make
Mm-hmm.
sure we really understand what the request is, what the requirements are, so that we can build it to satisfaction.
That's awesome. Yeah, feature requests, ties right into one of our values, which is white glove levels of customer service. Every customer will get a tailored solution from Wilmac. That brings me into where the line of business that I'm involved with, which is CCaaS. Could you touch on how you could see continuity bringing value to CCaaS software?
Absolutely. Going back to my earlier point about API first development, this is exactly why it matters. We're going to be building in, we call them connectors. And a connector is a standalone application that will integrate with your CCaaS solutions to pull data out and archive it directly into continuity replay in the cloud. So it's automating that process for you so that you can ingest that data on an ongoing basis without having to go in and actually do it manually.
Which is very important because a lot of companies are building their AI machine learning out of their old legacy data. What continuity replay will give them is their production data. The stuff that's happening every day will be fed into that model, which is very important to evolve in business in any market. When I first joined Wilmac, you were actually joining as well.
Yeah.
I think you were a week before me.
Yeah.
And then one of your first priorities was building your software development team.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about your guys that you brought in on that team?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess first off, I'm a fan of lean software development teams. So I try to keep it a small, tight knit team for as long as I can, especially since we are rewriting a lot of the product to be adaptable to the cloud. You don't want to have too many people with their hands in that pot when you're getting all of that established. So first thing is just keeping it small and lean. I brought in Anthony Hartwig. Anthony and I have worked together 3 different times in the
Wow.
past at different companies. Anthony has a lot of the same experience that I do in terms of technologies we've worked with, enterprise SaaS software, that sort of thing. He's been on various size teams. So we have a lot of overlapping experience, but he brings a different perspective than I do. So him and I challenge each other. That's something that's very important to me on a team. That's the way you get better, right? It's challenging one another. As well, him and I teach each other all the time. So when we're stuck on a problem, we usually pop up. You will see Anthony and I in my office or over at his desk or at a breakout table around the office, just talking about problems
downstairs in the cafeteria.
Yeah, exactly. It never stops. And then the next person we brought on is Colin Geis, and he is a software engineering co-op out of RIT. He's been a fantastic addition to the team. He brings a great attitude. He's hungry to learn. He gets a lot of the stuff that we're doing, and he doesn't back away from anything. So
awesome.
he's all over the place, and he picks stuff up so quickly. So that's the actual hands-on keyboards developing the code. That's the team today.
That's awesome. Yeah, I see you guys all over the office. Always working, and it's really cool to see. And Colin is a co-op from RIT, as you mentioned. There's a reason we are headquartered in Rochester. Not only were we founded here, but Rochester is a pretty large tech hub in America now. Some are calling it the new Silicon Valley. And a lot of that has to do with our educational institutions that are located here. RIT, University of Rochester, to name a couple. What is the importance of a young tech company to have a strong relationship with their educational institutions that are in their headquartered city?
This is a 3-part answer. Number one, of course, is the recruiting aspect, right? We want access to top talent coming out of college. We have that right in our backyard. It's really important to me to have a physical presence on campus, relationships with staff on campus so that students know who we are. And just to kind of have those open lines of communication all the time. It just helps with your recruiting. The second part of this answer is the relationship with the staff is super important. One, universities and colleges want feedback from the workforce on how their students are doing, right? And they adjust course as they get this feedback. RIT, I know, for example, has industry advisory board. And once a year, that board comes in and they get all the staff and the professors present to them on what they're teaching. And then the members of the board get an opportunity to give input into what is being taught in the coursework.
Wow, I actually did not know about that.
It's a really fantastic
That's awesome.
way to make sure that your students are really prepared, right? Because you have a direct line to workforce. So that's really important.
That's awesome.
And then the last part of this answer is just community. I think it's important for any company to have boots on the ground in the community, and what better way to do that than through your local colleges and universities. We sponsor a lot of events on campuses. We go and present to different clubs on campus. I will go and guest lecture at RIT to different courses as well, and kind of talk about how that course applies to the actual workforce and things of that nature.
Awesome.
Those things are all really important to me in terms of building community.
That's awesome. Yeah. And, it's not just, the technical students. We also, use the resources of the schools around us to pull interns into our sales and marketing departments as well. So it's very important at Wilmac for us to have strong connections to the community, strong connections to our local universities, and to be active. Well, I really appreciate you joining me, Bob, for our third episode of the Wilmac Wire. This interview was something I was looking forward to for a very long time, so I'm glad that we were finally able to get it recorded in our new office space. And I can't wait to see where you and your team take continuity replay. I can't wait to see how our customers utilize it, and I can't wait to see its blend into the CCaaS world. This is the third episode of the Wilmac Wire, and we look forward to seeing you next episode on episode 4. Thank you.